because when you chill and distill, it gets more crap out of the whiskey. I do believe I'm getting a case of the vapors. Hey, whiskey fans, and welcome to another exciting episode of Two Nimrods Drinking Whiskey, the only whiskey drinking show that asked the late, great Pappy Van Winkle what he thought of it, and he had this to say to us.
You on drugs?
High praise indeed. Please join me, Norm, and my fellow co-host, drinking buddy, and always Nimrod, Brian.
Hey everybody, I'm Brian, and I too am a Nimrod.
As we continue to conquer the road of whiskey 1 gram at a time.
Well, hey everybody, thanks again for tuning in, and thanks again for drinking along with us and correcting our many mistakes. I want to remind you, our viewer, that we are amateur whiskey enthusiasts, and all our musings should be taken with a dram of whiskey. Now that the legal disclaimer is out of the way, Norm, would you like to let the fine folk at home know what we'll be drinking today?
Today we're doing our first Tennessee whiskey. We are sampling some George Dickel Tennessee Sour Mash Whiskey, and it's the number 12 note. This is a 90 proof whiskey, about 45% alcohol by volume. It's got a sour mash bill consisting of 84% corn, about 8% rye, and 8% malted barley. And it's distilled at the Cascade Hollow Distilling Company, which is located in Tullahoma, Tennessee. It's almost as fun as saying Walla Walla, Washington. What if Walla Walla and Tullahoma were sister cities? That would be awesome.
They should have named it Tullahoma, Tullahoma.
And then you paid a nickel for the Dickel.
There it is. Who had 1 minute and 12 seconds for our first Dickel joke?
Oh, great. And like I said, Tullahoma, Tennessee is where they're located, and they've pretty much been distilling there for the most part since 1878. They were forced out for a time being during Prohibition, and then after Prohibition, spent some time in bouncing around various places in Kentucky. And then around 1958-59, they ended back up in Cascade Hollow, pretty much adjacent to the original site. And have been distilling there since. Sorry.
Yeah, and you mentioned that this is Tennessee whiskey, and I've seen that on bottles all my life. And I just assumed that meant it was made in Tennessee, but turns out that there's a lot more to it than that, and Tennessee whiskey is actually by Tennessee state legislature, a specific expression of whiskey.
Yeah, true. I was the same way. I just growing up just saw Tennessee whiskey. I'm like, okay, it's from Tennessee. I get it. But then, I realized there's an actual process. It's kind of called the Lincoln County process, in which the whiskey is filtered or steeped through maple charcoal before being placed in the oak barrels.
Well, now that we've covered all that ground, I think it's time we started tasting.
That's one of the best ideas I've heard all day.
Indeed.
Shall we?
Let's do it.
This is my first Dickel. Since that time in college, I needed a ride.
Oh, the witty banter while we're waiting for this to air out a little bit. We're starting off with a edit.
Hopefully through the magic of editing, that'll be taken out. This is my first Dickel. Since that time in college, I needed a ride. Nope. It looks like it's still there. Damn it.
So this has a nice caramel color. I don't know if they're allowed to add color to Tennessee whiskey.
I would think with that charcoal process, why would you have to add it? I mean, a
You
charred
would-
barrel, then going through the charcoal filtering, it should be good enough on its own.
It certainly should. It certainly should. Between the charred maple and spending some time in some charred oak. And now, George doesn't really say how long this was in the oak barrels, but the number 12 expression is their older barrels.
Actually, I do get the vanilla. Light alcohol. Yeah, it is kind of that. I'm just going to say a Granny Smith apple. It's kind of a tart apple.
Oh, I miss old Granny Smith. She knew how to put some whiskey down.
She loved her a Dickel.
Well, let's see what this tastes like. Let's see if this brings back any old memories. So it's certainly sweet up front. I feel like I get a little spice, a little pepper.
Mm-hmm. And there's the fruitiness finish.
Caramel.
And I read slightly oily. I wasn't sure what that meant, but now I think I taste it. Not a bad thing, but I think I kind of get what they were saying now. I think when I drink it, I smell the sweetness, but you taste the pepper. You don't really taste the sweetness as much.
I agree. It's not as sweet as it smells. Not as sweet. The taste isn't as sweet as the smell.
Right.
I've, despite the low rye content, I get a pretty solid sort of peppery like a rye would.
Yeah, I expected a lot more sweetness out of it.
Yeah, and it finishes pretty clean. It's not the biggest mouthful compared to some of the others we've had. Okay, so this has a completely different flavor profile with a little bit of ice in there. The pepper is mostly abated, and now I'm solid, kind of sweet and oaky and a little more fruit.
Yeah, I mean it does mute the pepper out a lot, and you do pick up the sweetness.
You know, obviously easier drinking on ice, but I actually kind of like the flavor profile neat better. Because I like the peppery.
Yeah, you're a rye guy.
I am a rye guy. Now, kind of the aftertaste, I'm picking up like butterscotch candy or some other kind of candy.
It was more cinnamony. Blah. It was more cinnamon neat than on the rocks, but I think it kind of stands out a little more with the ice.
Yeah,
I
get that cinnamon candy kind of finish.
Cinnamon will be at the main stage once Vescuity is done.
Vescuity is she's just a warm-up act.
Yeah, well, again, she's still new.
She is.
Working her way up the pole.
And she's scarless still, though, right?
Almost.
Her future's bright.
The knife scar is almost healed. Well, I mean, this is kind of one we did purposely pick out because of we were looking for something with really good price point.
Oh, for sure.
That's a good sipping whiskey. And so instead of kind of looking at it as comparing it to all the other whiskeys, we're like, I think for the price, this is a really good deal.
Oh, for sure. And in all actuality, a whiskey that costs twice this much probably isn't going to taste twice as good. My drink has gotten a little more watered down, and I am discovering some new flavors here. Well, it's more of that cinnamon candy, maybe a hint of citrus or zest, or what do you think?
Yeah, I can pick up the zest. I'll try it real quick.
This I find to be a much milder whiskey. Much less mouthfeel. It's pretty mellow. Who knows? Maybe it is that Lincoln County process. Now that I've been, spending some time with this, I'm definitely picking up that kind of hard candy butterscotch red hots on the back end.
I think I smell the cinnamon more when it's straight, but I taste it when it's on the rocks.
So, Norm, any final thoughts?
I like it. I think it's good. I always, again, just being prejudiced and not knowing better, it's a cheap whiskey, must be a cheaply priced whiskey. It must be a cheap whiskey. But I was wrong. It's actually a good whiskey at a great price. For
sure. It's good both ways, and depending on what your preference is for taste, I think there's something in here to be happy about. Both of my glasses are empty. I think that means we've come to the end of our show.
So, as always, and on that note, may your bottoms be up and your worries be down.
Hear, hear.
That's a good Dickel.